Welcome to part 5 of our live training session here with our FD RX7. In our last video, we looked at the calibration process for tuning the part throttle or cruising area of operation for fuel and spark timing. Now we're going to turn our attention into going into full throttle tuning, and we're going to be focusing turning off the boost control and just running off the wastegate spring level, which should be about 12 to 14 pounds on this particular turbo setup. We're going to be using the knock sensor to guide us in making our spark timing changes. I'll go through the entire calibration process with the knock sensor so that you can see how to calibrate it and then how to use that in its readings to gauge what kind of spark timing you can run. It's especially critical that we don't have knock on a rotary engine, or we can get almost immediate damage to the engine. The stakes are much higher on a rotary than a piston engine. So again, I'm going to show you the entire process start to finish, and you can replicate this on your rotary engine if you choose to do so. So without further wait, let's jump into our video so we can check this out. Welcome back to our live training session here with our FD RX7. In our last video, we mapped out the cruise part throttle area of operation on our rotary engine here with our Haltech Elite 1500. We've tuned the fuel, we've tuned the spark. We know that we have the properly dialed in VE table here from full engine vacuum all the way up to approximately 0 PSI. We went through that process just sweeping through the table using our short-term fuel trim and the closed loop correction to guide us in what changes we need to make. We learned how to work with our proportional and integral gains here in our closed loop to speed up that process so that we were getting very accurate and correct changes in our short-term correction here that again was guiding us back into making the updates into our table. We also looked at the injector phasing and the transient throttle tuning, so we have all that nailed down. Now we're ready to move into working with our full throttle area of operation. So we're going to be doing all of our full throttle tuning. We're only going to do it off of our wastegate actuator level, which should be about 13 to 15 PSI. That has a Turbo Smart Gen 5 internal wastegate assembly. It actually has a wastegate position sensor, which we're going to be talking about integrating in here as we look at our full throttle tuning. It also has a turbo speed sensor. Again, we'll look at that and talk about that as we're doing our calibration. Next video, we're going to focus more heavily on turning up the boost and trying to dial in higher power levels. Our goal right now is just to dial things in on the lowest boost possible, which is going to be our wastegate actuator level. If you had an external wastegate, it'd be whatever the wastegate spring is in your wastegate. So we need to get this kind of baseline nailed down so we have our fuel and spark timing set up so that we can move into going in and turning up our boost whenever we'd like. So this is, again, the next step in the calibration process. We've sliced this away. We have our starting and idling we worked on in the third video, last video, part throttle cruise, this video, full throttle tuning, whatever the lowest boost is going to be, and then we can move into doing boost control tuning if we're on a forced induction turbo engine like this. So what we're going to do here, just review a few things. I want to talk about a few things. As we're looking up into our table here, we're finding we have our volumetric efficiency values are starting to increase as we get into boost. Now anticipate these probably needing to be a little bit higher than what we're finding here. We're finding right now at approximately 0 PSI, our value is 90 to 100 is pretty normal. When we get into boost here, they can be all the way up to 130, 140% volumetric efficiency. So again, I anticipate having to add some in the table here. Now I don't want to do anything yet until we start to do our pools. This does have meth injection, has water meth injection from AEM. We integrated our failsafe. We can just talk about that very quickly here. Down into our rev limiter feature. So if we're looking down into our limits table, we have our end limiter. We know we have our 0 and 1 status. 1 meaning meth failsafe is on, 0 meaning it's off, so we set our limiter up here accordingly so it shuts down the engine if our meth stops working. So we have that as a backup and a failsafe here. We don't need to worry about that right now. If it fails for whatever reason during our calibration process, it'll rev limit the engine. It'll stop us. We won't have to worry about it leaning out or getting knocked, because that can definitely happen on a rotary. We definitely want to have this kind of failsafe implementation in place. So we have that in place, but as we're doing our tuning and we're getting into boost, we'll probably be finding that we need to have a little bit less of a volumetric efficiency value here. Again, their VE table estimates the airflow coming into the engine. If we have a higher value, we're estimating more airflow, therefore we're going to have more injector pulse width added and adding more fuel into the engine. So this table is probably going to need to be turned down, maybe just a little bit less than what I'd expect if I was just running petrol fuel or just running ethanol, because of the water meth injection. It's taking up some space in the combustion chamber, and we need to offset the petrol fuel that we're spraying through our port injectors. We need to scale that back down again to get the same air fuel that we're after. So I wanted to mention that because that's probably going to be one thing that you might notice if you're not running water meth injection. Comparing to what I'm doing in this video here, you might find your VE values are maybe a little bit higher, so don't be afraid to dial them in as needed. We know that idle part throttle, our VE values are right where they should be. So at idle here, or between 40 and 50. That's perfect. Part throttle, we're anywhere between 60. We did get it into the 80 range right here, which is a little bit higher. Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here, and you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.